That's good. I heard some yeses. Okay, so in this session, we're going to focus on business. How to think about, well, how to think about creating a business or solving a business problem, and how Mojaloop can help you with that. So let's just dive in. So, in building a business, one of the first things you need to do is you need to find a problem that is worth solving. So, what do I mean by a problem? Is something that isn't working in society, something that's broken, something that's expensive, difficult, something that's hard to do. It's something that's causing people pain. They don't like it. They're uncomfortable with it. It's a problem. And then if you find a problem that is worth solving, then, there's a book I like a lot. It's called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. And it's really good advice about how to design products. And essentially, it's so as developers and technologists, and you start building your solution that you think is amazing, and often you get too tied to that solution, and then you get stuck in a niche around that solution. Whereas in fact, what you need to understand is the problem that you're solving. And you need to actually spend a lot of time understanding that problem, understanding the impact of the problem, and also how to solve that problem. And in other words, if you need to fall in love with the problem, not your solution. So when it comes time to, when your solution no longer fixes the problem, or there's a better solution to fix that problem, then you should be willing to jump to a new solution. Because what's important is the problem you're solving. Okay, so, and it's all about finding product market fit. So what we mean by product market fit is a way to solve the problem so that it works for whoever you're solving it for, and in such a way that they're willing to spend some money on it. Because we want to make money out of a business. So it might be saving them money, but they're also spending the money on it. Because you need a business plan, you need a plan on how to make money, and it doesn't mean you need to be greedy about it. You can be realistic about it, but you do need to pay for your organization and your tools and your skills that you're building up. So product market fit is all about that. It's about finding a problem in the market that is worth something to solve. People are willing to spend money on you fixing it, and then you need to fix it. You need to give them a solution. And if you can get this right, then your startup or your business or your extension to your existing company will be a success. So I thought it might be a good idea to talk about problems, because that's where your business should start, is what problems are there that you're trying to solve. And I know a lot of you guys already are solving problems, but I thought I'd just elaborate on some of the problems I've been seeing. So I'm fairly new to Uganda, first time to Uganda. I'm enjoying it so far. So the Ugandan FinTech market is new to me, but I've been learning a lot. So I've got some ideas, but I don't know them all. You guys know the market better, and if you talk to other people in the market and get more ideas, you will find out more than I know. But from the discussions I've had so far, it looks like there's lots of problems. Biggest one is cost. So So I've put a high-level sketch up here. Don't read too much into it. But DFSP 1, DFSP 2. To spend money through, let's say, mobile money, you've got to go to an agent and upload some cash that's potentially costly, and then it's okay to transfer that money to other mobile money. That's not expensive at all, except if you want to pay money in another network. Then either it's not supported at all or it's costly. And if you want to run a company as a DFSP, there's lots of regulation that come along with that. And the regulation is costly. So not only the costs in your team, but also the costs that you need to pay the regulator to get approved and evaluated. And there's also, so let's say if you wanted to do bulk payments as well, so you needed to pay a whole lot of people, that's slow. It takes time to upload each of the details and move it along. So there's a lot of pain points here. Although it's a good system, you know, it does work, but there are points that make it difficult for the man in the street and the customers and some of your clients. And those are the things that you need to be concentrating on and building solutions for. Okay. And haven't even got into cross-border and cross-currency. I don't know how much of that is here, but that's also very expensive at the moment. I think in first world countries, the cost of doing Forex is in the low percentages, like 1 or 2%. In Africa, it's more like 10, which is ridiculous. Okay, so find a problem. That's where you start. So what does the level 1 project in Mojaloop offer? And there's some good things. There's these principles, because they're designed to remove cost. They actually very well aligned for new businesses. And I think you guys understand that because you've been talking about it throughout the week. But it's not just that. Lowering the cost is one aspect of it. The other one is with Mojaloop, if you meet the requirements, you do get a seat at the table. So Mojaloop, it's designed so it can include many organizations and connect them together. So it doesn't try and stop people joining. So if you meet the criteria to join, you're allowed to join. Because keeping the costs low and keeping the risks manageable are the two key things in Mojaloop. And the fact that organizations are fairly treated as equal based on the use cases they support. So obviously if you don't support bulk, then you can't be treated the same as other bulk supporting organizations, but that's where the discrimination is. It's on what you provide, or the solution that you provide, which is exactly where it should be. Okay, so the business case for PISP, because this hackathon is concentrated on PISP, why is that important? So third-party payment initiated services, by separating this out and allowing institutions to connect as FinTechs into Mojaloop, what that does is it's decoupling all the responsibilities associated with owning and managing an account. So remember in the previous view, on the DFSP, I said there's a whole lot of regulation and costs associated with that regulation. That is true. It's very tightly regulated and it's very, very expensive. And what PISP does is it allows you to become an expert in payments without needing to worry about all the costs and expenses that come along with owning accounts. So you can do the two separately. You can be an account holder, a DFSP, or you can be a payment expert. Really, so that's what it's all about. So it enables fintechs to become experts in payments without all the baggage of needing to be a DFSP. So there's less regulation, there's lower costs, there's the same controls for payments. So you have the same controls. The flows that we got on the PISP are very similar to the discovery and the agreements and the transfers. So you got the same touch points. And the other thing is each transaction is separately authenticated, so it is in fact secure. And that level of authentication is configurable and designed by the system and the software. You could make that two-factor authentication, in which case it's probably the most secure payment method around. Okay, so solving your problem, achieving product market fit. So achieving product market fit is a journey. It's not, you're not going to find it right in the beginning. But it's important to get out there with a solution and test that your solution in the market. So you're solving a problem for your customers. You got to make sure you are solving it, you know, and that there aren't hiccups along the way, and that it does actually fix the problem that they're encountering. And you also got to test that they're willing to trust you and use your solution and maybe even pay you money for it, depending on what your business model is. So all of those concepts need to be tested, and the best way to do it is to get out into the market, start talking to people. And sometimes when you test these, you can do it with an interview, and sometimes you need it with a product, depending on what you're doing. And you need a prototype out there, and you need to show people so that they can understand how it works, and you can build on it and iterate on it and make it better. So you need to test your ideas and assumptions out there with the customers and adapt your solution with what you've learned. So some companies take years to get product market fit. And what they do until they do that is they get investors and finance, and they get people to believe in the idea, and then finally they get them. One of those examples is Amazon. One of the biggest companies in the world today. It makes more money than most countries, and for 10 years they didn't have product market fit. They didn't have a really good business. They lost money for 10 years. So sometimes this is a journey. Okay, so I thought I would talk about some of the use cases supported by Mojaloop, and I'm going to be concentrating on the payer-initiated use cases, which are the ones that are more aligned with PISP. But these are just high-level ones. I'm expecting your solutions to be way more innovative, because you're fintechs. You don't have to stick with sort of traditional banking use cases. It can follow something completely different. But the idea behind going through these is just to share some of the well-documented use cases that are out there, and to see maybe how you can incorporate some of those into your applications. So the first one you know all about, the peer-to-peer. I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. Yeah, I don't think there's more to be said about peer-to-peer. But let's look at customer-initiated merchant payments. So yeah, the payer, often payers in the same vicinity as the payee. So you walk up to a shop and a store, and you've chosen some goods, now you want to pay for them. So this is typically how Google Pay works, or Apple Pay, they could have a QR code. So QR code is quite a common way to do it. So the merchant might have a QR code, and you, if you've got a smartphone, you can just take a photograph of it and then make the payment. Or it could have a similar mechanism with the number that you type in on a USSD phone, feature phone. So they're normally in the same vicinity, and it's funny enough, this is the same use case that you use for online shopping. You go to a vendor and you ask to pay, to make a payment. So that use case is supported. And then we've got a customer-initiated cash out. So you go and on your phone, you go to a vendor and you speak to them, and they say you want to cash out, and then you do it from your mobile device, and you initiate that cash out using the PISP. And then agent-initiated cash in would also work. So you've got some cash and you're doing a deposit, and the agent's initiating it. So yeah, so you can do cash in or cash out. We are limited in the PISP because of the trust mechanism and how the accounts are set up, that it is payer initiated. So the person who's doing the paying needs to be the one who initiates the payment. And then, of course, we've got bulk payments. Now this is not something that's existing yet on PISP, but it's something that we're working on. Bulk payments is supported inside as DFSPs, but we're certainly going through a process of extending PISP to handle bulk payments so that you can use PISP to pay salaries, for example. So if you've got you've just got a startup and you've got 20 people working for you and you need to pay them, then you can use the PISP mechanism to make that payment. Okay, that's all the slides I've got actually. Are there any questions? So, quick recap. Start with the problems. You know, make sure it's a good problem you're solving, and then find that product market fit for it. I think we actually ending quite early. I'm finished. Yeah, and it's a little.
Are there automated callbacks?
Automated callbacks when PISP?
Yes.
What exactly do you mean by an automated callback?
For example, if the agent initiates a payment to the DSSP, and then the payee does the payment, okay, the confirmation, instead of you calling the other endpoint, they simply send you that, yeah, they have received the payment. Something like that.
Yeah. So the whole FSPIOP API has got callbacks built into them. So, so yes, there are callbacks and notification, and because otherwise, as a payee DFSP, how do you get told that a payment's coming in? So, so yes. So, there are quite clever things about the merge loop API. One of them is it's completely symmetrical. So as a DFSP talking to the hub, it looks exactly the same as a hub talking to a DFSP, or in fact, you can take the hub out the middle and you can put two DFSPs together. And it works in two directions. So there's the outgoing calls, and then we've got callbacks coming back in. And part of the onboarding process as a PISP and a DFSP is you need to register your callback locations so that it can configure them and then call them appropriate. So there's a whole class of APIs that get triggered through the callback. So as a DFSP, there's a general rule. All the callbacks come as put calls. So if you read the API, the get and the post are all going out, but everything coming back is a put, so put calls are all callbacks back into the DFSP, and we have all our errors come back in callbacks, but also every single phase API call going out has got a put callback. So let me talk through the discovery. We have a get parties API call, and that goes out to the hub, and then a get parties call is made to the payee DFSP. So they need to have an endpoint that does a get parties call. Then the payee DFSP does a put callback back to the hub, and the hub does a put callback back to the payer DFSP. So there's a whole mechanism with calls going out and calls coming back. Yeah. So absolutely, it's full of callbacks.
Well, my question is, I'm trying to think this. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. Before Moja Loop, so for example, if I want to send money from Airtel to MTN, like there is a bilateral connection between the two companies. So you as Moja Loop, if there is a switch that is reducing that implies that the companies are not going to give themselves the money they were giving, like the revenue charging each other. You're going to take the revenue, and will that revenue be a reduced cost, or we the users shall have to pay to Moja Loop, MTN, and Airtel? I don't know whether I'm clear.
Yes, I think so. So there are there's a process flow that we call clearing, and that happens at time of transfer. So when a transfer happens, then the clearing, and that's immediate clearing. The money gets given and cleared to the payee. So the person who's receiving the money gets the money and they can spend it. But what about the organizations that hold it? So the payer organization put up some capital, which we call sort of liquidity, in order to be able to transact and send money through the switch. And during the transfer, we mark off how much money they sent, and we don't allow them to send more than the money they put up. Okay, so effectively, they after the transfer, they obliged to pay the other organization the money. Now how that happens is in another process we call inside Moja Loop settlement. So settlement happens once a day, and that is when the two organizations, so let's say we did, Moja Loop does allow transfer of monies between the two. So let's say the transfer happened between the two, it's cleared immediately. During clearing time, we mark the ledgers to say that that DFSP owes money to the other DFSP. So this DFSP now owes money to that DFSP. When are they going to pay it? And the answer is at least once a day. Once a day, we go through a clearing mechanism where what's commonly implemented is a deferred net settlement, and really after the end of day's transactions, some of them going in this direction, some of them going in that direction, some of them going to other DFSPs, they work out the net amount of money that needs to move between all the different players to settle, so that nobody owes nobody. You know, everyone's paid what they owed. And that happens during the settlement flow process. So that's how we balance it at the end of the day. So everyone owes everyone. But how do fees work? Fees are, we had some fee questions beforehand. There's lots of different ways of doing fees. And they can be included in the transfer or excluded from the transfer and paid separately, and there can be a fee connected to the hub, or there can be a fee that you transfer that you pay the other organization on the other side as part of that transfer. So there's a question: is it paid as part of the obligation, or is it paid as part of another mechanism? So those are the two different types. And then all parties can have a fee, but they need it to be agreed to by the scheme. So the DFSP could have a fee. That DFSP could also have a fee, and so could the hub. So that's the idea, and so it's a very flexible implementation. Really, and the details on those fees and how they're structured is part of how the scheme rules and structure around the scheme is designed. So a scheme is really a collection of organizations getting together to solve a business use case, or provide a use case to customers. So in that collection of people, there needs to be agreement between the parties, and part of that agreement would make sure that they cover their costs in an appropriate way, so that they're happy to participate in that scheme. So it's important that we do talk about fees, but really there are no rules. Anything is possible.
Oh, well, I've gotten it, but then what I want to ask, you're going to charge the fees according to the fees that were implemented between them or amongst them, not to exceed, okay, to go in for modular loop instead of remaining their bilateral connections, so that the fees remain the same, and you also earn using their fees.
I think I've understood you correctly. Basically, Moduloop cares about the fees that involve the parts in Moduloop. If you're a payer, let's say you're an agent and you charge a fee, and the fee is removed before the money that's transferred, then it's not part of Moduloop. I think that's what you're saying. So then the fee's outside of it, and nor is it passed on through Moduloop. It is just collected. You need to pay that fee in order to be able to send the transaction, and then that service will be added on. Yes, that is absolutely possible. Where Moduloop cares about the fees is when there's an agreement between the two different parties. You're saying, if you're sending money, let's say there's two mobile money organizations, and they're sending mobile money from one organization to the other one, they might want a fee for providing liquidity in their network, because they make their money on the cash out. And they pay money on the cash in, so they might want to recover those costs. So then there would be an agreement between the FSPs that they would charge a certain fee as money moves between the two different networks. Did I answer your question? Okay, good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I went through the modular repositories, like most of them, central ledger, email adapters, PS, account lookup services, and most of them. So when I was trying to look one of them I would use for my issues, I realized that first of all, they are not basic. They have microservices, cars, and a lot of it, which is not really easy for someone who is doing a startup here. In Uganda, you have little money, little resources to be able to manage. So I was like, is there a way one can be able to find at least a deployed API so that you don't have to now carry the burden for maintenance? Because even if one would be an expert, really maintaining those kind of issues in the beginning of a startup is not an easy thing. So is there a deployed API so that one can be able to use in the form of API or some sort of SDK? There is one I saw, but it's so much behind things that which are on a modular repo. You find there are those which are so far behind, like on SDK. I think it's developed by the community. There are a lot of features that modular repo has that the SDK doesn't have. So I was like, is there any deployed API that one can be able to use APIs instead of having to deploy a project which has a lot of complexity that are not easy to maintain?
So running a switch is complicated, unfortunately. And you're right, when you start looking at the detail, there's a lot of components and a lot that needs to be learned. The community does help with that learning cycle though, and there are lots of different ways of running it. Simplifying it, there are components that you can run on their own. You don't have to put them all together. So there is some level of simplification that you can do. You might want to look at the testing harness, which is a Docker Compose version of it, and it's got profiles. And if you run it for particular profiles, let's say you wanted the ALS only, you can, using the profile, just launch all the microservices that are relevant to the ALS. So that might be a good way to do it. In terms of sort of helping your business, why do you want to run a hub, or do you want to connect into a hub?
Well, for my case was like I wanted to extract some of the features that it offers, like use cases. So I tried a ML testing toolkit. I tried the newer version, which is a core harness. So the ML testing toolkit, both of them, they actually require at least a computer of at least 16 GB RAM to be able to boot up Docker images, and you know that it has it. So, another issue was like, it only now if I use it as an API, that means it's running locally. When I am running it locally on my computer, there is no way now I can now deploy a project that is using it in form of API. So that was my issue.
Yeah. So it is an open source project, which means the way it progresses is by what the community needs, and when people build things in the community, they often then donate what they built back into the open source. So it's not like a normal product where you can just choose a piece and then it works exactly the way you want it. So which is why it's quite complicated, and there's lots of different elements of it, because there's lots of different people who needed different things and put them all together. So the quickest way to use Mojaloop is to align yourself with what someone else did. So if someone else did something like that and then they had a way of deploying it, you can just use it in the same way and it will work. The other approach is you can take elements of the design or the thinking or the flow and try and include it yourself. But there is going to be some knowledge building up. And you're right about the machines. Right now, they require quite a lot of memory. But there is also a big effort ongoing right now to try and make sure that it doesn't require memory going forward. So work, time and effort needs to go in to really understand that and study that and make it possible. So I know Kafka sounds complicated, and to some, I suppose in some ways it is, but the beauty behind why we use Kafka is because the mechanism, the underlying technical mechanism that it operates is very simple, very straightforward, and very fast, and pretty reliable. So that's one of the difficulties with taking on Mojaloop is there's lots of different technologies to learn and master. So if you don't want to do that, the easiest way to do that is to use standardized components that people have built. If you want to pick and choose parts of it and build up your own solution, it's going to require deeper understanding and time and effort. But the community is quite helpful. So so if you run into questions or have some technical problems, you know, ask them on the Slack. You often get those answers. But I'm really interested that you're trying out what you're trying out. It shows interest, definitely.
Well, I'm suggesting if it's possible, because for you, may I try to run it? I went through all the courses of Mojaloop, like all the courses that are on learn.mojaloop.io, all of them, I finished them. At least I know most of like the use cases, what could help me. Where I was halted was when I realized that hosting, like it would, as you spoke of, like how would I, if it was possible that it was hosted, that I would simply use it in this form of API, Mojaloop, would have made a lot of work easier for me. Instead of having now to get the thing and start to deploy it for myself, because you know very well it's not cheaper on those platforms. So I said, now, as a startup that is just scratching, you can't even afford, you know, as you know, you have big funds, you know. So and again, a startup, you need to move a lot quicker than usual. So I realized that it would have taken me more time. Though I realized it has a lot of very many useful things. Is there a way that you can host it that people, we can just pick up an API endpoints and we try how to go around that?
Okay. So I work for Infotechs, and so we help contribute to Mojaloop, but I'm not in the hosting game, so that's not something I do. But I know the Mojaloop Foundation do that. They do host a sandbox, a FinTech sandbox, and if people ask to get connection to that sandbox, then they do give them the right credentials and allow them to connect into it. So yes, it is done, but you got to ask for it. They're not going to find you, and it's costly for them to do. So they need to understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, and then they will support you. So I do think there are ways of getting that done. I would call out to the Mojaloop Foundation and Paul Macon or any of those guys from the foundation on the site and ask them for what you need. They're there to help facilitate you and make that work.
Yeah, thank you very much. And finally, I would like a request that if it is possible to talk to them also, if we can be inspired by, of recent I was watching some FinTech in Mexico which was facilitating money, the transfer of money from USA to Mexico that deployed it. It inspired me. So I was thinking, is there a way they can make more public companies that are using Mojaloop, because it's an open source, and they should at least have the credit to be able to pronounce that, so that we'll be able to learn from their use cases. Now they're using it so that can, you know, increase the usability of it. That was my last request.
we are trying the hardest we can to do that. You're 100% right. More big public implementations. There are a few. I think TIPS in Tanzania uses Mojaloop. So there are some big commercial ones out there. I know WinePay use it in I don't know all of the sites that are using it, but there are a few. Listen, getting a switch approved and with the correct regulation is a journey. It doesn't just start. So the PCH guys or the Mexican guys for the cross-border remittance, they on that journey, but there's a lot of hurdles they need to go through first. Similarly, WinePay, they're still trying to get regulatory approval, I think. What might be worthwhile is if you go to our website, infotex.com, we've got a whole lot of blogs there. One of those blogs is about the journey you go on to building a hub. Because you've got to understand the scale of what needs to happen and the engagement that you've got to have with the people. In fact, you worried about the technology, and in fact the technology is the easiest part to solve. The hard part is the regulation and the politics around it. And if you can solve that, then the technology is easy. And if you can show that you're solving it, then people will give you money to be able to host it and run it. So you wouldn't have the problem with with paying for sandboxes and sort of test environments. So I think go and have a look because it's a big journey. It's not the small one. What we're hoping in this hackathon is to show how you can connect into payment engines using PISP. That's very different from running a hub or a switch, and there's a lot more work involved. And I'm glad you're thinking along those lines because it shows you're ambitious, and you know that's why it's open source, is that people can do exactly what you're thinking about. So I'm excited about it and how you're thinking about it. But I think go and have a look at that journey that we've laid out that you need to start thinking about, because it's not just the technology. In fact, the technology is the easiest part.
Finally, I want to send thanks to your friend Miguel. He really helped me understand a few things when I had issues. I learned into him and he really helped me. When you meet him, tell him thanks. He really was useful.
Sorry, I didn't hear the name.
Miguel.
Oh, Miguel.
Miguel. Miguel.
Okay, brilliant. No, Miguel. That I was on a call with him earlier. So we talk all the time.
Greetings to him.
I'll pass on your thanks. Great.
Hello, I'm Sauja. What are the challenges of creating interoperability in Mojaro? What challenges did you face?
The challenges. When you say interoperability, are you talking about the whole switch itself, or are you talking about people connecting into the switch?
Yeah, people connecting.
Connecting in. The biggest challenge is actually is onboarding them with the full security. So it's not something that we covered here. That's why we asked you to build your integration behind an SDK scheme adapter. And the reason is at the moment that's the easiest way for us to add in the security. So to manually configure the security certificates is a 200-step process. And if you make one mistake, it doesn't work. and you've got to redo it every couple of days. For that reason, we have a piece of software that automates it. I think that's one of the hardest parts. The other one is when you design your integration. So often, you guys are startups, so you might be a little bit different. But often most organizations, if they're DFSP, they've already got a back-end piece of software with accounts in it that are banking. And now you're trying to integrate the two elements together. So to design that integration so that there are no errors, or if there's a failure, that you don't end up with a situation where you've given out money and you're not going to be receiving it. So you got to make sure that your integration is done really well, and you handle all the error cases and testing around your integrations. So those are probably the hardest things, but we've got a really good tool set around supporting people doing that. We use the TTK, and we've got a whole lot of test sets, and you can test it locally and make sure it's right before you then scale it up and connect it into a sandbox or a more productionized system with full security. But I would say that's probably the challenge.
Yes, hello again. My name is Viana, and I'm building Sianese. So at Sianese, we are building technologies that help people invest their money. You said something that I picked interest in the most. It was to do with market fit. See, me and my teammates are trying to push Sianese towards market fit. So I would like to tap into your experience. I would like to tap into your expertise. As someone that has been developing tech products for the last many years, what is this one metric you would look at and say, we have got to market fit? Considering the fact that just the mere fact that you are pre-revenue, it doesn't necessarily mean, post-revenue, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are market fit, right? Yeah, so I would like to tap into your experience.
Yes, you're assuming that in all the startups I've been in that I've actually achieved product market fit. So it's a hard thing to get right. I think when you've got it right, you spend a lot less time trying to sell your software or your product. People start hearing about it from word of mouth, and they tell each other, look at this, you got to use this piece of software because it solves this problem for you. When that starts to happen, then you've achieved product market fit. And how investors like to see it is, they call it hockey stick growth. And because when you look at your growth number curves, it's suddenly, it's flat and smooth, and then it turns like a hockey stick and goes straight up. And that's what all investors want to see. And it basically means that the product that you provided has become viral. It's no longer you who's driving the product, it's the market that's driving it. They love it. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only product market fit. There are others. That's the one everyone likes to see. Often what happens is you end up with a steady growth, and the growth seems to balance quite well with your costs, and you tend to, for years, not make much money at all. And you can get stuck in that environment. You can get stuck in a place where you are successful, but you're not very successful. You know, your product's growing, so you're happy, you're paying the bills, but you're struggling month to month. And I think if you are in one of those situations, you've got to recognize that maybe I've got to change something fundamentally to find that better product market fit where people are excited about the offering that I've got, and start seeing that growth escalate. So we are technologists, which means that our solutions can be copied and sort of expanded that way. So one of the key metrics is, well, as a product, as someone trying to build a product, you can also fall into the mode of actually being a service company. In other words, every client that you've got, you customize the solution for them, and then you don't actually end up having a product. You end up sort of redesigning solutions for those companies. So what you want to do is to make sure that you do provide a standardized solution that can be scaled out. One of the good indications, I've heard this metric before, you're not a software development company unless you've got more than a certain percentage annual recurring income. And if you achieve that, then you can start to think of yourself as a software company. Before that number, you're definitely a service company. So if you're building all the time and you don't have something that reoccurs, some sort of cost that reoccurs, then you're probably not a software development company in a stricter sense. Does that resonate with you in some way? I know being in the market, selling software services is a tough business.
Yes. Hello. My name is Sejay Rashid, and from Team Opportunity. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Starting from, like, you said, like there is some cost, like that you can charge the third parties. Is it the DFSP? Yeah. So, and also you said that Mojarup is completely open source. So if it's open source, like, can someone somehow like find a loophole and maybe create a clone of Mojarup for it with no costs at all? Like, how do you overcome that scenario? Because it's open source, I believe that can be like somehow like overcame, right? So, and the other question is, like, there are some third parties. Okay, there are Mojarup works on top of third parties. Like, can you help list all those third parties? And also, like, is there any online documentation that clearly shows how those third parties can be integrated? Finally, like, I believe maybe you might have talked about this sometime, but like, can Mojarup work without these third parties? Like, can it work just when it's completely Mojarup? Yeah, that's it.
Just a quick question on your question. When you say third parties, who do you mean? Like
I think they are the DFSPs, like.
DFSPs are the bank institutions.
Okay, like in the like when you're integrating it like Mojarup into an application, like there's a point where they say like the link to the third party, something like that, and you have to provide the link. I remember last time we talked about Google, something like that.
Okay, like Google Pay or third-party payment initiated. Okay.
So now the list of those and like any proper online documentation that shows how they can be integrated.
Okay. I've now forgotten your first question. Maybe I'll answer the second two then. So third-party payment initiated services, the PISP, requires the DFSPs to be connected. So you got to have a merge loop switch, and you got to have these organizations connected and involved before the PISP can leverage their business model. Because what the PISP does is it asks the DFSP to make the payment. So if they're not there, there's no one to ask. So it's like a request to pay. I'm requesting you to make the payment. I've got permission, and here's my authorization to make a payment from this person's account to that person's account. That's what the PISP flow is all about. So you've got to have the banks connected. The banks and the mobile money and the MFIs and all the different financial institutions who have accounts. So Mojaloop doesn't work unless there are institutions connected that have accounts. And PISP is a way to open that network up to other players. Example of those third party, we don't have too many real world examples of PISP, but I don't know of any that are live, but on Mojaloop, but I know of sort of world equivalents to them. I think MTN, MoMo API, they've got a PISP link. I know Google Pay, Apple Pay. There's so many different pays nowadays, but it's become a bit of a trend. So there's a lot of organizations that can initiate a payment. What we haven't seen are the smaller organizations getting involved. For instance, having a WhatsApp payment bot would work as a PISP. You're using WhatsApp, and then what happens if you could just send money in WhatsApp? So a WhatsApp payment bot would be an example use case of implementation of a PISP. So I don't know if we do have an online resource about the different companies, but I'll look out for one. Then you had a question about open source and fees. I do remember my first question, your first question. So the way the fees work inside Mojaloop is they not part of Mojaloop. So Mojaloop has got the mechanism to implement the fees and pass the messages across, but they're not specifically implemented. The implementation happens on the DFSPs and how they build their integrations, and on the PISP. So the fee is not part of the Mojaloop switch. The Mojaloop handles the brokering of the fees. There is an element where the Mojaloop can set up a fee, but it's not part of the open source code. It's a rules engine that calculates the fees that gets loaded up into the system. So what you're saying can't happen because the mechanism can't happen. But I think that's not the point. The point is what you're trying to make is, because it's open source, is it not vulnerable to people coming in and making changes that could then compromise the whole system? So Mojaloop has got a lot of checks and balances and CI checks and testing and release processes that are put in place, along with a set of governance models and down to the code level. So the reason why that can't happen is because of the governance that's been built into the Mojaloop system. So the more you work with it, and if you try and make a contribution into code, you will find that you're blocked. You can't. There's CI checks that are likely to fail, and you've got to get you need to go through a code review with the code owner of the repo. So you need to sit on a meeting with him and talk through his code, or GitHub have a way of doing it offline, so it doesn't have to be a meeting. You upload your PR and you request to get it merged in. Someone will review it and make comments. Why is that there? Why is this here? Please remove that. I like this here. Sort of make comments to ensure that the code coming into the repository is in fact aligned with the ideals of Mojaloop and the repository. So there are checks and balances. So although it's open source, it's not open for hackers.
Yeah, the last question was that, like, can Mojarup work without those third parties? Like, can it work without them completely?
Without DFSPs?
No, like the Google Pay, the Apple Pay.
Yes, yeah. So you can do in the same way that we've done in the hackathon, where you've got 3 different calls to process a transfer. We got a very similar view for a DFSP. So a DFSP has got an SDK that can be implemented, and it's a straight call that's send money. Send money, this is where it needs to go to, and the SDK manages the 3-phase transfer and all the error callbacks and gives you the result of that transfer. So yes, DFSPs can do that. And PISP is a slightly more complicated flow than the DFSP. But the reason why it's important is DFSPs need to go through regulation. And for startups, they can be quite costly. So, and we know that some startups trying to get that regulation in Uganda have struggled, which is why we're thinking that PISP might be the way to unlock that innovation, to get more organizations connecting in. But as a DFSP, you would be running, you would have to have accounts, you would have to have a sort of a back-end banking software, and in fact, Mifos is an open-sourced version of that. So you could download sort of a Mifos back-end banking engine and connect it into the system, and there are standardized connections that connect into Mojalup. So yes, you don't need PISPs. We do believe that PISP is the great multiplier. You know, if we have lots of people innovating and coming up with useful solutions that are solving people's problems living in an area, we think that that's going to drive the market massively. So the reason why we're doing the hackathon on that one is because we feel like it's more appropriate for this group of entrepreneurs. Okay, are there any more questions?
How does the Mojalup hub handle transaction? How does the Mojalup hub handle transaction reconciliation and settlement between different parties?
How does it manage the settlement? So we actually cover this in some of those training courses. So it might do a better description of it than I do. The most common used settlement model is a deferred net settlement. Okay, and it sounds like a whole lot of different words. And complicated, but it's not really. Deferred means it's not done at the time of the transaction, it's done later. And net means we don't do a transfer for each transfer. We only send the balance transfers between the organizations. So that's what net means. So, and then settlement is just the mechanism. So once a day we find out the net balances between all the different parties, and then we transfer the money more closely to the actual mechanism. So each transfers get allocated to a window, and then you can then close a window, and then it opens up a new window, and all the new transfers go into that window. So you can sort of batch all your transfers together in windows. You can then group a whole lot of windows together and say, I want to settle all these windows. So you can choose all the windows for the last 24 hours, and you begin the settlement process. Once you've then created a settlement against a series of windows, you then generate a report. And that report has got details of all the transfers, but then also the net settlement amounts. Those settlement amounts then get, it can be done automatically, but in the beginning it's often just done manually. So it's loaded into a spreadsheet and emailed off to the settlement bank. And the settlement bank will have the account number, person account number, how much money they need to get, you know. And then they do the transfers between all the different participants, and they make sure that settlement happens. And then, so once the settlement bank has completed that settlement flow, then they send back a report as to what actually happened and what the final balances are. And then that report then gets uploaded back into Mojaloop again, and then the liquidity positions are adjusted to match what's in the account, and it also marks all the transfers as settled and completed. So it's fairly manual. Yeah. We do envisage that over time, if a settlement integration is built, so in other words, instead of emailing lists, there was a back-end API and configuration with the settlement bank, then you could actually settle immediately, and the system could settle automatically, and then do automatic reconciliation. And if that is possible, then you don't have to do it once a day. You can do it every 5 minutes, which means if you're an organization and you've just received a whole lot of money, even your organization will get the money, you know, will get the money pretty soon. Okay, are there any other questions?
Thank you. Could you give us like a real life example of what's happening in that diagram using known DFSPs like MTN or Airtel? Because I assume like most of our products are centered around those DFSPs, but I really can't fix. I even don't know who will be the agent when we are implementing our solution.
That's something I'm not particularly good at. So I'll tell you what I was thinking about when I put it together. I don't know how realistic it is. For instance, this could be MTM, mobile money. This could be Airtel. And this one could be an agent, a cash-in agent on the side of the road. But it doesn't have to be. Are there any other questions? Did I answer your question? Okay, I think we're done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Paul. Let us give him a round of applause again. So Paul has really tried. He takes time to prepare these presentations to try and simplify them, and he's really done his best. I hope that you're now somewhere with Mojaloop. Are you? Yeah? I want an energetic yes or no. Are you somewhere with Mojaloop? Okay, that's better. So the facilitators are going to continue with the teams that they had not seen. Those that they have seen and have told you what to do, kindly correct, make corrections, improve, yeah, use that time to do that.
Now, I would like to mention that we are in a hackathon. We are learning. We have facilitators who are guiding us. They look at our solutions, they guide us, they are going to make suggestions, they are going to make recommendations, but they are not telling you to change. Now, that is up to you. You are the product owners, right? And as a product owner, you know what you want. You know what you designed, right? So they are going to advise you, they will suggest, they will recommend, but the final decision belongs to who? The final decision belongs to who? Yes. And don't worry about them that you have to do what they tell you. They are not the judges. Yes? Yeah, they are not the judges. Okay, then over to you, Cleopatra.
Hello, 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 hello. So, how are you doing? Hello? How are you? Are you fine? Really? So, Mastula is not fine. What's wrong? Yes. So we've not covered all the teams because we're running short of time. So for the teams that we've not been able to meet, you're going to find us at the back after the mentorship session. Okay? So right now we're going to talk about the MVP. Minimal viable product. What is an MVP? So I want us to read from the slides because I've observed that you guys are not reading the notes that we are sharing. How many people have bothered to look through the slides? Happy? No, not this one. The slides we've been sharing. Who reads them? Okay. So I need somebody, a volunteer, read straight from the screen. I want us to get this info the way it is so that you guys have a very clear and precise picture of what an MVP is. Because there was a lot of confusion about wireframes, mockups, and prototypes. And most of you have been presenting mockups. Okay? So the prototype has to have interactivity. I need to click that button. You've put the call to action. It should take me to a page. It should do this. It should do that. Okay? So your application or your website should be working to a certain degree. Okay? While the mockups were just the visual displays with arrows. This one should go here, and then this one goes to there, and then the wireframes were just simple structures with the X's and a box for images, and then you could do like curvy lines to show where text is supposed to go. Okay, so from the mockup, when you're designing the system, you start with the mockup, then you go to the prototype. You people do it. It's just because you're not aware that you're doing it. Okay? You don't have it documented. And then from the mock-up, we go to the prototype. Okay? The prototype shows you the flow. You can be able to give somebody the demo on the phone, and you know, they're testing out the buttons that you've put and the links. Okay? And they are actually working. Now, when it comes to the MVP, we are testing functionality. Okay? If a debit is supposed to happen on, let's say, a digital wallet that you have in your application, is it actually happening? If you're crediting the wallet, is the money increasing in the wallet? Okay? Did you get the gist? That is now the MVP. Okay? Read.
Product is introduced in the market with basic features, but enough to get the attention of the consumers. The final product is released in the market only after getting sufficient feedback from the product's initial users.
Thank you. So it has only the core functionality that is good enough for you to take out there and you tell somebody, hey, I've been creating this app, and it's important for you to have certain customers that you've been engaging with, like your target group, so that at every design phase, you're getting feedback from them. Okay? So you could carry your laptop, you could carry your phone,
Okay, even if it's a demo there, connect the phone, tell them, hey, this is what the application is supposed to look like. Get their feedback about the UI. Do you like the colors, the shape of the patterns? Are they too small? You know, are they too big? Is the text readable? Okay? Yeah, so it should be that functioning. Okay? So then you tell them, we want to test it out with this way. Fuel, right? Right now, I want to call it an MVP. What is that core functionality that you are doing a demo for here? If you can just explain to the rest. Can she do it?
We were basically showing how the border rider is going to request for fuel and how they are going to be verified, what code they are going to, the OTP code they are going to receive. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So at the stage where they are ready to test their product with their target customer. Okay, they've gone beyond the prototype and have some bit of functionality. Okay, what is the goal? Read.
Reduce the length of time and resources spent on the product development cycles. Reduce the length of time and resources spent on product development cycles, and to figure out if a business model is viable early and early.
Cool. Who wants to build an entire application from start to finish, take it out to the market, test it with the people they think they've developed it for, only to realize that it's actually not working? Diana, do you want to do that? Definitely not. How much time have you spent with BOPE, ideation, everything from up to this point? Like how much time? And resources, probably, roughly.
Well, lots of sleepless nights and hours and hours.
So it could take you 2 to 3 months or an entire month. You're designing, you're writing code, you're doing UI, UX, and it's just from assumption. Okay, or even if you've done engagement, you need to go back and test. Okay, so the purpose of trying out with the MVP is you want to reduce all these significant costs in terms of time and money. Okay, some of you have to pay developers to write the code. Okay, you're going to pay somebody, and at the end of the day, the app is going to be shelved. So we create MVPs so that you can quickly take them to the market, get feedback, and iterate, improve from what you've discovered from the market. Okay? Are we together? Yes, I want us to be so attentive to what an MVP should do. Approach, we have core functionality, minimum effort, and resources. Okay? And also, it's a learning vehicle. Okay? Learning vehicle because you have to iterate. Don't get comfortable with your solution. It has to change over time. Who remembers when WhatsApp started out? Okay? What features were there? Did you remember the basic?
Good afternoon. I remember there was messaging. There wasn't statuses. There wasn't, there weren't calls. Yeah.
Who else remembers? WhatsApp.
Another important one was the profile picture. Like if someone put you on their DP, it was a big deal because there was no status.
Okay, good. Who else remembers?
There was no community WhatsApp whereby you do groups and pull up the communities.
Nice. Who else remembers WhatsApp in its first stages of rollout? Anybody else?
There were no themes, like you could not change the theme to any colors that you wanted.
Good. So what I'm getting at here is that you can always improve your product. Okay? It doesn't have to be picture perfect, but if you have the core functionality. So WhatsApp's core functionality was basically connecting people, and it has successfully done that. And now they have all these awesome add-ons, okay? That has also led to its acquisition by Meta, right? Same thing with Instagram, okay? They also started out with an MVP, Stripe. Stripe, the one that's used for payments, integrated by most companies overseas, okay? They also started out with an MVP, okay? Then there's also Airbnb. Who knows Airbnb? Airbnb, what does it do?
For Airbnb, you can like press an order for an apartment, fully furnished house, anything all over the world.
Awesome. So Airbnb, which is a multi-billion company, started out with a very simple homepage or web page where they just had one image, some very minimal text, but guess what? It worked. Okay? It worked. And right now, you can have an Airbnb anywhere in the world. Okay? Started out in the States. Right? Yeah. So core functionality. And their core functionality was basically getting people a home away from home. And that has stuck. Okay? They've done so many additions and all that to the services, but they've held on to the core functionality. Core functionality considerations. Who wants to read?
Identify the pain point you're trying to solve. Identify the main target audience. People who are feeling this pain and would be willing to pay for that solution. Focus on initial customer.
Okay? So I know, at least from my circle of friends, someone might not have airtime, but they'll have data on their phone, so they can use WhatsApp. These days we even call using WhatsApp, right? So you don't have to have airtime. Okay? Yes. So it's because WhatsApp addressed a very significant pain point for people that right now they don't care if they have to spend a little more money. Okay? Because they know if I get data for my phone, I can text, I can call, I can view people's statuses, keep up with what they are doing. Okay? Secretively, you can stalk people, don't do it. right? Yes. You can do that. So you get a whole lot more for what you're paying for compared to just putting, what do they call it? Airtime to call, eh? Okay? So there's a lot more they're offering. And we've already been through this process from day one. Problem statement. Identify the pain points. So this brings us to the core value preposition. And we are going to use this little template to help us craft the core value preposition for our MVP. Right? So it reads, the words in orange are what you're going to fill out, and I want you to do this now. Okay? Somebody in your team should start writing this out, because I'm going to ask you to read. I'm going to go through you reading this. Product name provides, name the service. 2, the customers, name which customers in the culture environment, okay, with the voice, helping them, impact. So this is the culture environment, speaks about the influence of geographic location, religious, I'm going to take you back to the previous slide, no worries, and social systems in the marketing system. Voice refers to the manner in which the product or service communicates with its users. Okay? Then the X factor is a wow factor. So I'm going to take you back. You write this real quick. Then I take you to a sample core value preposition. 1 minute. Are we done? No, just write the template, okay? Then you're going to fill it out later. Let me send you one on WhatsApp, okay? I will save some time. So I've sent it on the WhatsApp group, the general group. So this core value preposition, when we're looking at the MVP, helps you articulate the problem and the solution. Okay? Very, very clearly. Actually, the solution. Okay? So we've moved away from the problem. The problem is in the problem statement. So this is an example core value preposition for a company called FinEase, okay? A dummy company. So service to customers. FinEase offers simplified and inclusive financial management tools. The culture environment is in diverse economic and cultural backgrounds. The voice is with a user-centric and approachable communication style. The impact is helping them achieve financial empowerment and stability. So their X factor is EmpowerTech. EmpowerTech is a product for FinEase. Okay? So EmpowerTech, our proprietary EmpowerTech engine, utilizes advanced AI to personalize financial insights, recommendations, and resources, ensuring that every user can confidently make informed decisions about their money. Okay? So your system should be able to emulate this. Okay? Yeah, so this is just a sample core value preposition. What should we do and what should we not do when we are building the MVP? Don't build for long. Okay? Don't take 6 months, 1 year building a product, building a bad product. Okay? And what is a bad product? A bad product is a product that does not address the needs of the people that it's designed for. Okay? What you should do is build lean and launch quickly. How many of you are creating your solution or have been creating your solution from day one? Day one of the hackathon. Okay? I see Mastula. Who else? From day one? Okay, who else? Who else? Dana? Nice. Mama's Daily Cookie? Yeah. Yes, you too. Yes. Okay, so these guys, Aksam, not a chance. So these guys are going to have just 7 days, okay, of actual development or product development, and it's a very short time. And I wish you all the best. If any of you go through, the ones that had started building from day one, like with us here, you're going to have had the ideal situation for an MVP. Okay? Build quick. Build lean, as in lean have very few features. Don't overcrowd your dashboards or your user interfaces. Okay? Build lean, have minimum features there that address, that implement core functionality. Okay? So yeah, if you happen to go through, that will be an example situation where building lean and launching fast happens. Okay? So spend very little time designing the actual system, because I know it's tiresome. Okay? And for people who are non-developers, you have to pay people to do for you the coding. Right? Then including, the bad idea is including all customers. Right? Which team here has about 5 users? Which team has 5 users? 4 users? 4 users? Really? Who and who and who and who?
All right, we have the system administrator, we have the border rider, we have the if fuel agent, and a fuel agent.
Who is going to be your initial customer? the first customer?
Of course, it's the boda rider.
Good point. Okay? So in the MVP, you really want to focus on the initial customer, right? Who is that last mile person you're targeting? Because the admins, yes, for them, they can do the admin work. They can even be the agents for the start for your MVP, right? All these people you're going, those are running costs, by the way, that you have to consider in your return of investment. Because if you're going to pay agents, that is money leaving your business. Okay? But at the start, you can be all the other 3 users, and then the external one is the boda rider. Solving all customers' problems. Impossible. Right? I told you of a scenario where Dorothy and I visited Wandega Market, right? And somebody has a different set of problems and somebody else has a different set of problems. You can't solve all of them at a go. It would be nearly impossible. Okay? So focus on the eminent problem at hand, right? That particular pain point that is really going to get them interested in your application. The other bad idea is falling in love with your MVP. People who are not open-minded. I designed my application, it's beautiful, the interfaces are fire, you know, and it's working. It's crediting, it's doing ABCD, it's debiting, the notifications are coming through. But why isn't it disruptive? Disruptive meaning, why aren't the customers taking it on? Okay? Why aren't they adopting your solution? Your system could be fine, perfect. It's maybe even running in the cloud. You've used the best services out there. But if it's not solving the pain point, then it goes to the shelf. Okay? So how do you avoid that? You're awesome, you've done the wonderful development, product development. Take the product out, get feedback, as much feedback as you can, and then iterate. Okay? It's all about iteration. Like I gave you the example of WhatsApp. WhatsApp today is not WhatsApp 5 years back. Okay? Yeah, so iterate, improve until you solve the problem. You don't have to get it right the first time. So there's a saying, you'd rather fail fast and learn than build for so long and still fail at the end. Okay? Fail fast. Get up. What lessons have you learned? Build on that. Go back out there. Improve. Fail again. Come back until the problem is solved. So we won't have people ditching their solutions after the hackathon because they've not won. No, that is not the case. Okay? You've put in a lot of time. The ladies here from Gulu, you put in a lot of time, you put in a lot of energy. You know, our people from Kabale? Kabale? Oh, you're the ones. Oh, sorry, I was looking at. Yeah, so our people from Kabale, you've done a lot of traveling and all that. I mean, all of you have sacrificed a thing or two to be here, right? Yeah, and FinTech, I'll tell you, FinTech is the it industry right now in the tech world. FinTech. Okay? Don't give up on your ideas. Fail, get up, iterate. Fail and learn. Learning is important. Okay? Yeah. So lastly, about the MVP, hold the problem tightly. What do you think that means? Anybody? Oh, okay.
I think that means focus on understanding what the problem really is.
Anybody else?
Okay, I think don't go off track. You have a reason to why you created a solution to that problem, then don't be diverted. You should hold the problem so tightly so that you don't go off track.
Anybody else?
By that I may understand it in a way that you have to at least understand the cause of the problem and of course stay within the scope of that problem. Don't divert.
I think there can only be one problem. There can only be one problem, but you can always find your way to solve it in very many different ways. So, yesterday, one of the presenters shared that you could come up with a solution and love it so much, but probably your target customer won't accept it as you expected. So, you can always find out to solve their problem creatively, but the problem will always stay. The solution is flexible.
Awesome. Okay. The problem will always remain unless it's solved. The solutions can always vary, right?
For me, it basically means to hit the pain point. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. One more.
I think it is important to stick to that problem you saw from the beginning, even if you be having so many feedback. You address what was in your heart.
Thank you. Yeah. So keep the problem at the forefront. Okay? You set out a goal. You identified that women need credit services. Don't divert and start giving them, let's say, beauty services before you've addressed the problem of access to credit services. Okay? You can always diversify, or what we call scaling, but the core of your system, what is at the heart of your system, is improving access to credit services, right? Then the other point, hold the customer tightly. What does that mean?
To me, it means you should keep your solution centered to your customer, the person who is going to use it. And you do what they want, not what you want.
It also, okay, for me, it means like always addressing what the customers talk about. Whatever they complain about, maybe that's exactly what they want. So for me, that's what it means to me.
Thank you both.
To me, it's empathy. You develop with the customers in your head, like put yourself in their shoes, and as you're developing, you have to put them at the back of your mind. So whatever you're doing, it should be benefiting them, not you.
To me, it means understanding your customer needs and sticking to that, like developing towards those needs and maintaining that.
Okay.
So in addition to what my colleagues have said, for me it calls for focus. As you are a developer, you have to focus. Though we do have these emotions that we want to implement more of what our customers do want. So we just need to focus on the customer basis. That's my opinion.
Thank you both. Anybody else?
Yes, to me, it means ensuring excellent customer services and making sure that you provide, making sure, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more.
To me, it means knowing what your customer exactly need, what they need, not developing to just develop, but to see if what you're developing is really needed for your customers.
Okay, because who is experiencing the problem that we are holding tightly? The customer, right? So the problem is only existent because the customer is experiencing it, right? Yeah, so always strive to understand what the customer needs. Yeah. Then an MVP is a learning vehicle. Somebody to read? Okay.
An MVP is the best way to learn from your customers. Tons of research is okay, but may not actually help build a product that addresses the pain points for your customer. Launch and learn.
So we should use that as the motto for our MVP today. Launch and learn. You will not know what your customer exactly wants unless you've presented them with a working prototype, which we call the MVP, right? Launch, let them use it, get feedback, learn, then iterate. Go back to the development process. Include the functionalities that you need to include that address the problem at hand. Okay? Yeah. So, how much time, Charlotte, do I have? Okay, so you have the template for the core value proposition, and that is what is going to guide your MVP. Okay? Yeah. So good luck.
Thank you so much, Cleopatra. Now we are getting really technical. Now I would like to invite our CEO, Innocent Kawoya. There is something that he wants to pass on. Let us welcome him. As we wait for our mentor, she apologized. Something held her up, but she's on the way.
Where is Alien Screen? Alien. Hi everyone. Are you okay? We say we're going to have a second Made of God challenge. Eh? Yeah? Hi. So whose birthday was on 11th? Auntie. 10th. 10th. Yeah? Martha? Please come. 10th, it was Martha. Yeah? Maureen. When? Please come, Maureen.
Whose birthday was on 11th? Yeah? Shout, please drop for us a link for NGTV in the group. 10th, eh? We should have celebrated that day. 11th, 10th, okay? 12th, yeah? 13th,